Hey, what is up, YouTube boxing family? It is K-Rod here, back at it with another good video for y'all today. I was going to talk about the whole situation with Floyd Mayweather back in the past. And I think it's a pretty good video topic to discuss, and I guess as far as the situation topic that I'm going to bring up, I think it's important for me to bring it up because it's something that is needed for people to understand that legacy over money in boxing is actually a little bit more important when it comes to solidifying your greatness for the amount of wealth that you can get in the sport. And I think compared to any other sport in the world, sports like basketball, football in America, soccer globally, and all these other sports, those athletes have it made because those sports are completely associated with a marketized system where the athletes get their representation at all costs because the fans have their own marketized regulation into those sports, regardless of what people try to say, oh well, these organizations are bad, blah blah blah, but still it's like people that put so much money into those sports, they still demand the best face and the best at all costs. So I think that's a great thing to have, and hopefully one day the sport of boxing can follow. But as far as the topic at hand, I'm going to be talking about Floyd Mayweather, and I'm going to be making a case of why I believe Floyd Mayweather avoided Undisputed with Kell Brook. And for those of you that don't know, Floyd Mayweather, at the time from 2014 leading up to 2015, Floyd Mayweather, he had all three belts at hand out of the four belts, out of the major sanction bodies, i.e. the WBO, the IBF, and the WBC and the WBA. For those of you that don't know, the standard of being undisputed in today's four belt era, you have to basically fight for all four of the belts if you want to consider yourself to be the man that beat everybody in your division. So yeah, let's talk about it, man, because this is actually a very interesting fight that could have happened, and I think this is why the sport of boxing just never came to fruition with anybody in the division. But actually, I'm going to be making a case for why Floyd Mayweather, he could have been undisputed at a super welterweight too, because it actually says right here that back in 2014 when he had all three of the belts, he had three out of the four belts. He had the WBC, he had the what? Yo, that's insane. Yo, so Floyd Mayweather fought for yo, that's insane, man. Wow. So basically, back in 2014, Floyd Mayweather that fought Marcos Maidana the second time, right? He fought for the super welterweight title and the welterweight title on the line. So he was basically fighting for two divisions in one particular fight. But basically, what happened was that when he fought Marcos Maidana, he had the WBC super welterweight title, and he had the WBA super welterweight title, and he was still holding the WBC welterweight title, which I don't want to put that into the into the mix, but I guess quote unquote that was still on the line because if Marcos Maidana wanted to fight at 147, he could have done that. But I don't understand why this fight is still listed as a welterweight bout, knowing that the super welterweight titles or the super welterweight title was on the line. So I don't understand why that was there for the WBC's case, but that was pretty weird how two WBC belts for two different weight classes were on the line. But yeah, that technically happened, and I guess as far as of the champions at that time, back in 2014, I guess for the IBF super welterweight champion at the time, I could have I want to say as far as that went, the champion at that time was let's see. I'm actually looking at the IBF champions at the time, but leading up to date with I believe back in, let's see. Well, actually no, I'll actually look at the IBF, championship history, ratings of when they had the belts. But yeah, let's take a look at the male ratings back in 2014 of that following May, or actually maybe September. I'll go back to September. That was September of 24 or 2015. No, actually no, 2014. Yeah, September of 2014. Hold on, give me 1 second. Wait, actually no, they don't even do that. Actually no, they didn't. All right, so I'm gonna go down to 154, and I'm going to find it if they can show it to me. Oh, okay, here we go. So actually, at this time frame, quote unquote, the the IBF was quote unquote vacated or vacant as of that following year of 2014, and Demetrius Andrade, he had the WBO. So during this time frame, when Floyd Mayweather beat Marcos Maidana for two separate weight classes for the WBA super welterweight title and the WBC super welterweight title, along with the WBC welterweight title, Floyd could have unified the division for 154, and then he could have moved back down to 147, where he could have fought Manny Pacquiao, or he could have fought Kell Brook after defeating Manny Pacquiao for 3 belts for the WBC, WBA, and WBO. So what Floyd could have done was that after beating Manny Pacquiao, he could have been a back-to-back 154-pound and 147-pound world champion for Undisputed. And I think the biggest takeaway from this is just that I just find this so weird out of Floyd Mayweather, because he could have easily, won the title for the IBF at 154. And, leading into that 2014, if I'm not mistaken, I'll actually fast forward it to December of that year, leading into the new year. Cornelius Bundrich, he actually won the title at that time frame, in which he actually had won the title back in October 11th of that following 2014, according to the IBF, and then he had a mandatory on June 11th of 2015, and then as far as his defense, his last defense was back in November 30th of 2021. Hold on, because let me look at that, because Bundrich, I don't think he was really active in boxing. Yeah, that could be wrong, because I don't think he's really done anything. Yeah, he actually stopped boxing back in 2020. That was his last recent fight. But yeah, Cornelius Bundrich, he held the IBF title after defeating Corey Spinks. He was the the quote unquote undisputed welterweight champion of the 3-belt era that had defeated Ricardo Mayorga. And I guess leading into that time frame, that's where Corey Spinks, he actually came to the end of his career, fighting a guy like Cornelius Bundrich, who I want to say he was actually older at the time, but I think at this time frame, Corey Spinks, he was not the same fighter. He came into the game very, very early. He actually started in 1997, and he ended his career in 2013. That was his last fight against Carlos Molina, in which he lost a 12-round unanimous decision victory or loss to him, and unfortunately, he decided to call it quits. And yeah, I don't blame him, because Corey Spinks, he was not that type of guy where he really had everything left in the tank for him. But I think his best wins was against Zab Judah. That was for Undisputed, at that time frame where Zab Judah, he lost at the first fight back in April of that year. But then after that, he just basically came back and knocked out Corey Spinks for Undisputed. That was back in 2005, where he became, he became Undisputed himself in the three belt era. And yeah, that was a very, very good fight. He did what he had to do to be the man of his division, and he definitely did some big things. But yeah, as far as everything else goes, I mean, there was just plenty of great fights that Floyd Mayweather could have been in. But I think the biggest takeaway from it is just that Floyd Mayweather, looking back at his career, he could have unified 154 with Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, and then I would probably say fighting for the vacancy, up against Cornelius Bundridge at the time, because he won the belt that following October of 2014. So I don't understand why Floyd wouldn't have done that, because that would have been a great resume to do leading after the Marcos Maidana fight. I think he should have just stayed at 154 after he had beat Canelo Alvarez, that following 2013, where he was already like a 5-division world champion. So at this time frame, this is where Floyd Mayweather, he had, basically everything in the bag with the WBC and the WBA. So he should have just unified with Andrade back in those days, and then he could have fought, Cornelius Bundridge, or honestly maybe Jermall Charlo, because for those of you that don't know, Jermall Charlo, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not too sure if Jermall Charlo, was ready for a world title for his IBF belt, but looking at the box rec right here, he won his IBF World Championship back in 2015 against Cornelius Bundridge. So actually, now that I think about it, Floyd Mayweather could have fought Jermall Charlo for Undisputed at that time frame. So, however the belts may had changed between whoever, Cornelius Bundridge or Jermall Charlo would have been that mega fight for Floyd. Even though Floyd, he wouldn't have thought it to be like that, but if Floyd wanted to go for legacy, I personally wouldn't mind a fight between him and Jermall Charlo or Cornelius Bundridge, which those would have been great mega fights. And then if you take those guys out, or either of those guys out, or whoever beats each other, in their fight, in which obviously Charlo, he beat him because he became a champion at 154, that would have been a great mega fight for them leading into Undisputed with Demetrius Andrade. So that just makes me think, why didn't Floyd Mayweather go after either of these guys? Because Cornelius Bundridge at the time, he was only 34-5-0 when he fought Charlo. But when he very first won the IBF world title, if I'm not mistaken, hold on, I'm actually looking at it. He fought Yuri Foreman for the IBF 154-pound title eliminator, in which that went to a no decision. So then later on, that following 2010, as of August 7th, predating from his previous fight back in 2009 of June 27th against Yuri Foreman, he basically decided to go ahead and basically he went on to fight Corey Spinks, in which he then defeated him. He knocked him out in 5 rounds, and then that's where he beat Setcho Powell. He beat Corey Spinks again in a rematch, and then he unfortunately lost to Ishe Smith. But then after that, leading into him him regaining the like him regaining the IBF title at the time, where Ishii Smith, after he had beat him, I don't know what happened. I think he had to vacate the title because he probably didn't make weight or whatever. But if I'm not mistaken, he won the IBF title against Cornelius, and then moving forward from that fight, he lost it to Carlos Molina. Okay. Like Carlos Molina had the IBF title, but then what happened was that, okay, I get it now. He won it, but then he lost it to Cornelius Bundridge. So Bundridge, he basically regained his title after trading hands with or trading placements with other fighters that had won the fight or that had won the title. So either way, the IBF title was in a major warfare, so there really wasn't that much strain on the title. But either way, Floyd Mayweather, he could have fought for the IBF belt. It was definitely in a giant palooza of fighters that were fighting for it. So I don't see why Floyd Mayweather couldn't have gotten that fight, because those fights were definitely on the PBC at the time frame. But even if they weren't, Floyd Mayweather could have easily cross promoted with whoever he needed to promote with, and the fights would have been made. So I don't see why Floyd Mayweather didn't go for those opportunities at hand, where he could have been undisputed by fighting Demetrius Andrade at the time, or whoever had the IBF belt at the time frame, either Bundridge or Jamal Charlo, and then moving forward with Kell Brook for undisputed when he beat Sean Porter to win his title back in 2014. Yeah, Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather could have went all the way over to the UK and fought Kell Brook and defeated him, and then boom, Floyd Mayweather could have been a 2-division undisputed world champion, way better than Canelo Alvarez and all these other hyped up fighters and everything. So I don't know, man. I think honestly, like, just the way how Floyd Mayweather moved his career, he really just blew so many opportunities. Because, like, looking back at it, like, even during the 3-belt era, like, you can't tell me that Floyd Mayweather, he had such a good stellar career. Because it's like, even when he beat Gennaro Hernandez and Angel Manfredi, in which those were two dangerous fighters at the time frame, very, very good ass fighters, but still, the problem was just that Floyd Mayweather could have had opportunities to unify, but he decided not to do that. He decided to just hold on to his belt and then vacate and then move up and just kind of do, like, all this, like, little tic-tac-toe, I'm gonna move over here, move over there type of shit, and it just made no sense to me. I don't understand why Floyd would ever do that, but either way, he's had a good resume. He didn't like, I wouldn't say he avoided any competition, but at the same token, when you see it for how it is, Floyd Mayweather did it for the business, but he avoided the bigger fights for the business to be better on his side. Because if you mean to tell me not becoming 2-division undisputed world champion means something for you to get the bigger bag in boxing, I don't really like that. I think that's really that's really stupid. And yeah, I think the biggest problem out of Floyd Mayweather's career is that he really avoided the big money fights to unify his legacy to be the best of what he can be. So I don't know. I think Floyd Mayweather, he is still TBE. He's still one of the best fighters out there. He still knows how to operate himself to be good. But the problem still remains is just that Floyd Mayweather had multiple opportunities to unify several divisions, and I think his best chances were at 154 and 147, and I think that's really the biggest takeaway because all the big fights that he could have had after beating a Kell Brook or beating a Demetrius Andrade or Cornelius Bundridge or Jamal Charlo to unify those divisions for Undisputed. You could have fought guys like Keith Thurman. You could have fought Austin Trout. You could have fought so many guys that just want to fight you. And I think that's what made Floyd Mayweather's career so questionable because it's like he's obviously fighting fighters just to get a payday. But out of these paydays, these are opponents that are coming off of their greatest victories in which that's just used to mask as a agent to say Floyd Mayweather is fighting a very, very good, credible opponent. So I definitely don't blame Floyd Mayweather for moving this type of way because moving on a business level in boxing to not care about the legacy and not care about actually cleaning out divisions, that's fine. But at the same token, don't call yourself to be the greatest of your era if you're not able to clean out, various, divisions and take those big risks where you have to fight in somebody else's backyard to actually be a mega underdog. Or even if you were a heavy favorite, you could still go in there and dominate your opposition to be great. So I guess as far as for this case in point is just that I do believe Floyd Mayweather, he really did avoid those big fights because he's not like a natural 154 pounder fighter. He obviously started his career very, very small at 126 or 130. I think 130 was like his very first pro debut career weight class. But either way, Floyd Mayweather, he was really never to be that big of a guy. The most he's really ever gotten that big was really at welterweight, and then super welterweight was pretty much a division that he was able to handle because he was able to immobilize, the size differential with his boxing ability and take away the greatest strengths that certain fighters had for him to win the fight a lot easier. So Floyd Mayweather did his thing. He dominated divisions, the way he's supposed to do it. But I think the biggest takeaway from it is just that Floyd Mayweather, he's not to be considered the greatest if you're not unifying your divisions to clean them out to be called, the greatest ever. Which I'm not gonna take anything away from Mayweather, but looking back at his career, he's only been stacking up all these championship level fights just to have it as part of his accolades to say, oh well, I beat 26 world champ or 23 world champions in a row. Well, actually no. Consecutively, he's beaten I think 16 world champions or 17 consecutive. I'm not too sure, but it was like either of those numbers. And then on top of that, he's beaten altogether a total of 23 world champions, altogether throughout his career. And every single big fight that he's had, those opponents that he's fought, they've all came from a big win. So, he hasn't fought really that many guys from his career, in his biggest fights where they came off of, losses. And I think that's the greatest thing about Mayweather because he fought all the top-notch opposition that he could find. And out of all these big fights, his toughest fights was Marcos Maidana, definitely Miguel Cotto, I say Emmanuel Augustus, that was a very difficult fight. Zab Judah, arguably one of the best fights, but difficult fights ever for Floyd Mayweather. Zab Judah had a good style to beat Floyd Mayweather, and that was a very tough ass fight. I say DeMarcus Corley, that was a very tough ass fight at 140 because he just moved up from lightweight to actually face him. Jose Luis Castillo, very, very difficult fights. Floyd Mayweather hurt his hand in the first fight, and I think in the second fight he fought way better and did the same exact thing. He just outboxed him, and he just crushed him. But yeah, Floyd Mayweather's career is definitely just 10 out of 10. He's had a phenomenal career, but I'm not gonna just sit here and say that he didn't be the best in his division, because he was the best in his division. But if you can't prove that to me, to say that you chose not to unify for Undisputed to be the best in your era, you should be cleaning out all these divisions. So therefore, after you win these belts, you could just vacate, and then you could basically be the money man to just go, wherever. Because think about it. If Floyd Mayweather decided to, let's just say early on in his career, when he first won a title, and probably moving forward when he had to move up from 130 all the way up to 135 and 140, he could have unified those divisions, and then that would have given him some more momentum in the business table for him to go up to higher weight classes, and he could actually have more of a say with who he wants to fight. And granted, don't get it twisted. Obviously, we're talking about like a young Floyd Mayweather that was constantly growing. So I don't blame him if he had to move up in weight, if he can't if he couldn't had made weight easily for the lower weight classes that he used to campaign at. So I think his biggest peaks out of his entire career should have been him unifying for Undisputed, at least at 140, 147, and 154, because I feel like that's pretty much like a duck in a way for for him to not go after any of those big names like a Keith Thurman or Adrian Broner, or any of those fighters that he could have easily fought, and just cleaned out those divisions, and then boom, you could have just honestly, Floyd Mayweather could have been arguably a 3 division undisputed world champion. And I think that's not the biggest problem that a lot of people don't tend to really talk about, because they say, okay, well, belts don't matter, but still, the name and opposition matters, and divisions matter for a reason, for you to prove to the world that you beat everyone in your division to be the number one guy. So the biggest takeaway from it is just that if you're not willing to do that in the sport of boxing, but you're willing to do prize fighting to fight whoever you want, then you can't call yourself to be the best. You can call yourself to be one of the biggest entertainers in boxing, where you give people a very good fight, where you don't know who's going to win the fight, but still, that fight is that fight of itself is still a multi-million-dollar level fight, to the point where everybody wants to see that fight. So the advertisement sells well to the name of who you fight, because they have a good credible name, their resume has been on fire, so therefore you've been on fire, so therefore let's make the fight. Versus if you're going to fight for legacy and you still want to get those big money fights, you should be calling everybody out, and you should be going after all the top shelf smoke if you want to unify to be the number one guy. In which not a lot of fighters want to do that, because they're afraid of potentially losing to one of those opponents that could easily beat them, or could beat them in the near future. So I don't really blame them for having that mindset, but at the same time, they're trying to replicate Floyd Mayweather's business antics, where if you're not worth me fighting you, then I shouldn't be fighting you. So therefore, I'm not going to be fighting any of these top shelf level names, because I don't want to lose. And to me, I find that to be so stupid and so retarded, because it's like Floyd Mayweather really screwed up the game in boxing, where a lot of guys just don't want to surrender their undefeated record unless it's for a title shot opportunity, where they could beat a potential opponent for them to actually win the fight. So I think I think I think that's really like the biggest, that's like the biggest failure that the sport has to offer right now, because it's like nobody's fighting each other. The sport is very drained out, and it's just like that's why you get to that's why you see all these really crappy low level matches that certain promotional banners put out there, because they're obviously promoting their fighter, easy level competition for them to just be promoted easier, and they don't have to go through all these dangerous, high level fights. So I don't know, man. I think honestly, eventually, these fighters need to stop, mimicking Floyd Mayweather, and they just need to go out there and fight. So therefore, their undefeated records can be taken out of the window, and they can, learn from their mistakes, and they could start, growing to be a legendary bred fighter. But obviously, that's not going to come overnight. That's why boxing is so unpredictable, where you don't know what's going to happen, leading into like a fight for a particular fighter. So I don't know. I think honestly, like, in regards to Floyd Mayweather's career, it was a good career, but I can't call him to be the greatest. He's definitely one of the best, entertaining, talents, but I don't ever call him to be like the number one guy, in all divisions, because you can't really be number one if you're not pushing to be number one. So I mean, that's pretty much what I have to say. I don't know how you guys would think about it. Do you think Floyd Mayweather, he didn't need to unify 147 and 154 at the time with Kell Brook and potentially Demetrius Andrade and possibly Bundrich or Charlo? So yeah, let me know. I think Floyd Mayweather, he had his opportunity, but he didn't want to do that because he obviously saw let the risk in taking those fights. But yeah, I'll see you guys later, and yeah, I will definitely see you guys. So thank you guys, and peace out. Bye.